Wine and Crime contains graphic and explicit content which may not be suitable for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where two friends chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents. Sure do. Indeed we do. I am Amanda.
I'm Lucy. I'm eating M&Ms.
Oh my God. Okay.
What? Are you surprised?
No.
Because you shouldn't be.
But it does remind me of when, for like Father's Day one year, we took my dad to see Spam-A-Lot, like in a theater.
I remember this story.
And at intermission, or not even at intermission, like before the show, he got himself a little treat. He got M&Ms, and I'm sure we got cocktails. Not me, but him, because I was not old enough yet. And he was laughing so loud while eating the M&Ms that then he was choking on the M&Ms.
Wasn't he shushed?
He was shush, and then at intermission, the people sitting behind us requested new seats. They didn't come back.
God,
and
I miss your dad.
Assigned seating. It's not like a movie theater where you've just
got to do something.
Yeah, we can't handle this. We must be moved. So just make sure that when you're eating your treats, you don't choke on. Well, at least in this situation, John could just edit it out if you choke on your treats. I don't want you to choke on your treats, but don't choke on your treats.
Also, Spam-A-Lot was fucking funny. So, like,
that's so good. It's such a good show.
It's so good.
So good. Anyway,
oh
hi.
My God. Hi. I'm so excited for today's episode.
Yeah. This week we have a very special Gals Pick brought to you by us, which
You're
is
welcome.
really a Lucy pick.
Yes,
Would
of
you
course.
like to introduce it?
Yes. I also have to run out during our next ad break because I forgot my props.
Good props.
Of course I have props.
Okay, well.
For this topic, which is lobotomy crimes.
Ah! Well, I can't wait. You know this is not a video episode though, right?
No, it's odd oral, AU oral.
The
audio.
props are just for me, and then are you uploading photos of them to the drive?
I can definitely upload photos, but they're musical in nature. So don't worry. The props will be experienced by those listening.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'm fucking amped.
I am too.
Can we please dive right in?
Yeah, let's dive right in.
Our wine crime pairing.
Indeed. So someone sent me an incredible care package of wine from a phenomenal winery that I am so excited to drink today. Of the selection that they sent me, I have chosen the Stasis Aglianico from Tooth Nail Winery.
Nail.
Yeah. So there are a lot of reasons that this feels like a fit. Like the definition of stasis sort of seems like the intended purpose of lobotomy itself to achieve that state of like static balance. But of course, we know that's not how that panned out.
Nope.
At all. And of course, like Lucy mentioned, I also can't help but think of nails and other pointy objects when lobotomy is mentioned. So tooth and nail, it just seemed perfect.
We'll get to it.
I don't know if I've featured like a pure Aglianico before, but let me tell you, when we go to Italy in the fall, I will be looking for this. It sounds so delicious, and it's very closely connected to a lot of my favorite varietals. So Aglianico is a black grape grown in the southern regions of Italy. It's considered to be in the big three with Sangiovese and Nebbiolo, which you know I fucking love Nebbiolo so much. So it's in that ranking of like the top 3 greatest Italian varietals of all time.
Wow, I've never even heard of it.
I feel like it's often in blends. But I don't see it a ton of times on its own.
I also don't drink the reds, so
you don't
maybe
really
I
drink
just
red.
haven't been looking at it. But you know what? I'm going to open my horizons when we go to Italy, and hopefully I just don't lose my lunch.
You won't. We'll take good care of you.
Okay, great.
But Aglianico is sometimes called the Barolo of the South due to its ability to produce highly refined, complex, fine wines. I also love Barolo. I'm kind of surprised. That's probably in the top 4, I would say. But of like the big 3, I guess this is one of the big 3 in Italy. This particular bottle is highly aromatic with purple flower, cranberry, blueberry, dried thyme, loamy notes. It's got that balance of like earthiness and floral and dark fruit. So I'm super excited about it. The palette has flavors of pomegranate, strawberry, blueberry, blue fruit, and ripened blackberry. And then it is balanced really nicely with minerality, tobacco notes, herbal notes, a nice bright finish. It does linger a little bit on the palate, but shouldn't be super tannic. I'm really excited about it. It honestly sounds like a perfect red.
Sounds delicious.
She's also 14.5% ABV, so she's on the high side, which Mama approves. And she's a popper, so you're going to want to head to wineandcrimepodcast.bigcartel.com and get you a wine key for this bad boy.
Yeah, choice of 2.
What are you drinking right now?
I am drinking one of my Simply lemonade. This is a strawberry lemonade.
Yum.
I tried the limeades last time, and it was like just too. The limeade wasn't hitting me. Also,
it's got booze too, right?
Yeah, spiked. Simply spiked.
Thank God. I was like,
yeah.
If you're making another announcement this soon, I'm gonna launch myself into the sun.
My floor couldn't handle it.
Your pelvic floor. All right, I've loosened this girly pop up. Should we pop her open?
You go first, then I'll crack my Simply.
Oh, I love that. Okay, here we go. Nope. Not loose enough. It's a line cork. A lot of length.
Oh, that is long.
She's a grower and a shower. All right, here we go.
Oh, yum.
Oh, yeah. This
Blue
is
fruit pop.
The fruitiest pop. Oh, she's gorgeous. Nice and inky.
What a nice color.
So beautiful.
That's a healthy pour.
You know what?
Love it.
I'm not going anywhere tonight.
No.
It's got antioxidants. It's good for my heart.
It's made of grapes. It is a salad.
It's a salad. It's a fruit salad.
All right.
Without the marshmallows.
Mine's made of lemon and strawberries. So here we go. Oh, yeah.
Ooh, great crack.
Gas station pop.
Oh, my God. I love a gas station pop. Cheers.
Cheers.
Wait, you can get booze at the gas station in Iowa?
Yeah, babe.
Ugh, I need to move.
Ooh, that's better than the limeade. I like that.
Good.
All right. Well, while we take our first sips, shall we take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsors?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
I am feeling like I'm always in a constant battle with myself to like save money, get my finances on track, just have like everything make sense. But it seemed like, I was stuck, my bank account was stuck, and thankfully I heard about Rocket Money and I gave it a try. We've been using Rocket Money for like years now. Turns out I had a bunch of subscriptions I was paying for that I had forgotten about. Rocket Money helped me cancel some of them. And with all of these incredible financial tools that they have within the Rocket Money platform, I'm really starting to see my account balance going up and just like getting such a solid grip on my finances. I feel like a real adult.
And I like no longer avoid looking at my financial stuff because their dashboard is just like, once you get into a rhythm and you can see how much money you're saving, it's like a rush of endorphins.
It's nice.
Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. With Rocket Money, we have full control over our subscriptions and a clear view of our expenses. So like I said, that dashboard, that's where you can see all of your subscriptions in one place. And if you see something you don't want, Rocket Money can help you cancel it with just a few taps.
Yep.
It also shows you like this month's spending compared to last month, which is really helpful. I love their emails. It's like, here's your account snapshot. Here's like where your spending is. And for some reason, it just seems more approachable and like less scary than like my bank.
Yes.
It's like
a cool aunt rather than an angry dad.
Yes, that's a great way to describe it. A cool aunt who will call customer service for you.
Yeah, it's your cool aunt helping you with your finances and like doing a really good job. You can trust her.
Yeah, they can also help you create a custom budget to keep your spending on track. And like I mentioned, Rocket Money will even try to negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is submit a picture of your bill and Rocket Money will take care of the rest. They will deal with the customer service for you.
I'm obsessed.
Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features.
That's a trip.
Yes.
That's literally a fun weekend getaway. So stop wasting money on things that you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/gals. That's rocketmoney.com/gals. One more time, rocketmoney.com/gals. And treat your wallet.
Try it. Stitch Fix sends style so good you can feel it. Literally and emotionally. They deliver all the confidence that comes from a truly amazing outfit without any of the work for you.
I could not tell you more confidently how little work you have to put into this process. And they really do take such good care of you. My stylist helps take my wardrobe to the next level. She knows what works for me. Oftentimes, especially when it comes to denim, she knows way better than what I know about what works for me. She helps me discover new things about my style. She helps me kind of explore things that I wouldn't say are outside of my comfort zone because it's me. So what's outside of my comfort zone? But things that I might not have been drawn to myself. It's like having a stylish bestie that's just shopping for you. And you know that confidence boost you get when you put on a really amazing outfit. And that is what I get from Stitch Fix. And the confidence I feel like is extra because I don't have to deal with going to a sweaty store and bad lighting and figuring out sizes that are inconsistent and not fitting.
Talking to a sales associate that's
following
paid by
you
commission.
Around. Yeah, it's too much. I can do this in my bedroom in front of my mirror that I know makes me look correct, accurate, with my lighting. And then they send you 5 just for you pieces. They also include these really cute styling and outfit recommendations. I keep what I love. I send back the rest. It's so easy. They have a prepaid return bag. You just drop it off. It's done. My stylist sends personalized pieces and the fit is flawless. I'm telling you, I have 8 pairs of jeans now from Stitch Fix. They all fit so beautifully.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. It's like she's reading my mind. I really don't know how she does it, but she just knows my booty, I guess. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy. I get outfits that make me look and feel really good, and I don't have to shop. And if you don't love something, like I said, you just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free.
Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/gals. That's stitchfix.com/gals, GALS. One more time, stitchfix.com/gals. And treat your style.
Treat it. All right, Lucy, as you quiver with anticipation, what is our background and psych for Lobotomy Crimes?
Oh my God. Well, by nature, this is psych.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't know.
Now you know.
A lobotomy is a type of brain surgery that involves severing the connection between the frontal lobe and other parts of the brain. So before we go any further, the frontal lobe is sort of I would say it's what makes you.
Mm-hmm.
It's what makes humans human. It's center for communication, emotion, expression, feelings.
Isn't decision making in there too?
Any of the higher level functioning parts of how our body works is located in that frontal lobe.
Great. Definitely sever that.
Yeah. So the rest of your brain is making sure all of your organs are functioning on their own and
the automatic shit.
Yeah. Your frontal lobe is the important the human individualistic part of the brain. Mm-hmm. So what could go wrong? Well, let me tell you.
A lot.
The procedure is also known as a frontal lobotomy, a leucotomy, or a prefrontal leucotomy. Maybe it's leucotomy. I don't know.
I don't know.
Whatever, not taking questions. This procedure was formerly used as a way to quote unquote help patients with such disorders as schizophrenia, manic depression, mania, aka bipolar disorder, and other mental illnesses. Also, not like things like homosexuality and
it got weaponized for so much shit. Hysteria, women ADHD.
Acting out. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll get to a lot of that. But it was especially when talking about like the diagnoses of the day, which is like the mid 20th century, like the 1950s.
Mm-hmm. It was the 50s.
It was definitely misused, and one could easily argue that there's no good use for the procedure in the first place.
Yeah.
So, kind of as I just referenced, this procedure has been discredited, and today it is thankfully obsolete.
Mm-hmm. Was it like all out banned, or is it just so unnecessary that no one will even bother performing it?
The latter. Well, it depends on where in the world you're talking about, and we'll get to that as well.
Okay.
In some countries, it was banned, and in other countries, it just became obsolete because of different medications, like medications to treat schizophrenia and depression and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there was ample proof stacking up that lobotomies did more harm than good. So,
yeah, I'm sure you'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to all this. It's going to be a fun episode.
Oh, golly. I kept my notes like a little bit shorter because I knew you were going to go absolutely
25 pages of notes
off. I was like, I didn't even look. I looked like right before we were recording because there were two things I wanted to add that we had crossover on. And I was like, oh, good. My instincts were 100% correct.
Yeah.
On how to prep for this one.
I'm so glad you know me so well.
I do.
So evidence that surgical manipulation of the brain could, quote, calm patients. And also, let's just keep in mind that this was about, it might have been equal parts controlling psychiatric patients as it was healing people in like a holistic sense.
I would argue that it was not equal. That it was the scale was tipped toward
at the most equal.
It feels like it was born out of we're not equipped to deal with a lot of these issues that we don't know much about. We can suddenly without sometimes killing people, you'll get to it, but without always killing people, we can make them like docile and kind of back to square one. Let's do that instead.
Yeah. And there's a whole history, like, you know, in the history of medicine about just subduing people who have different challenges, like across the spectrum of human abilities and disabilities. Like there's just, we'll get to it. We're going to fucking get to it. I'm like 3 sentences in.
Whew.
But there's so much to say. Okay.
There's so much to say. It's gonna be like that today.
Okay, so evidence that this manipulation could, quote unquote, calm patients first emerged in the late 1880s when Swiss physician Gottlieb Burckhardt performed the first systematic attempt at modern human psychosurgery, which is a scary term on its own.
That's terrifying.
Especially the name Gottlieb.
Yeah, not
like it.
Not living for it.
Mm-mm. In this procedure, he removed parts of the brain cortex in patients who suffered from auditory hallucinations and other symptoms of mental illness. Mm-hmm. He performed this procedure on 6 total patients with hopes of returning them to, again, a quote-unquote calm state.
Stasis.
Mm-hmm. One of the patients died several days following the operation, while another actually died by suicide. And this is the 1880s, also like a experimental medical procedure. We don't know. It's unclear if their suicide had anything to do with the procedure. But given what we know now about how the brain operates, if that did affect the frontal lobe, it's very possible that it just made their symptoms worse. Or just put them
eliminated
in a completely different mental state, and that was an option for them.
Like if the frontal lobe helps, or primarily in that section, regulates your decision making, and then with that severed, you're in a state of distress and you can't like slow down and think through what your options are. I could see that happening.
Yeah. So we don't know many details about that, but
it's pretty
the
safe
result
to assume.
of one of the 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't fuck with people's brains like that. Despite these results, the other patients were easier to manage after the surgery. Burkhart's idea for the operation was influenced by the work of German physiologist Friedrich Goltz, who had performed brain ablation, which is the surgical removal of brain tissue, experiments in that vein on dogs, and observed distinct changes in those dogs' behaviors. So, like, no shit, you gonna go in and take out parts of somebody's brains? Of course they're gonna behave differently.
They're gonna change up.
Switch it up. In 1935, Portuguese neurophysician Antonio Egas Moniz.
Nailed it.
Got it. Thought that a physical malfunction in the brain caused symptoms and mental health conditions. He believed that he could cure people by severing the connection between the frontal lobe and other sections of the brain, forcing like a kind of reset. So again, they're still not fully understanding like what the fuck it is that they're doing. They're just going in and jiggling it around and looks like it worked just because they're way more fucked up than they used to be and we can control them easier. It's what it boils down to.
That's really, that's like really what it was used for. We'll get to it in my case.
Excellent. He referenced the experiments performed by Yale physiologists John Farquhar, Lord Farquhar, Fulton, and C.F. Jacobson.
No! Probably.
Jacobson with an E. E-N. S-E-N.
All right.
No relation.
I don't trust an E-N.
Never trust an E-N. Who found that removing the frontal lobes of chimpanzees made them calmer and more cooperative. What is a cooperative chimpanzee?
And why do we need that? Like, why? I can't with this. It's so sick.
It is sick. This is the early 1900s medical shit. So
I mean, I understand that we like had to do some guessing and poking and prodding and figuring out to like learn the complex intricacies of the human body.
It's just so barbaric.
The ways in which we as a society did that.
It was also like fully embraced, and we'll get to it.
I mean, and preying on mentally ill, disabled, and Black people was like the name of the game. Gay people. That was just lumped under mentally ill. Yeah. It's really fucking frightening.
So Moniz also observed the changes in personality of soldiers who had injuries to their frontal lobes. So, you know, you're in an explosion, you have literal brain damage. To your frontal lobe, you're going to be, you know, we know this today.
Right. TBI.
But it's just being observed in like a really, I mean, they don't have scans and shit. It's being observed in a very
early primitive.
Thank you for that word. In a primitive way. So Moniz, who was affected by gout and couldn't use his hands, which is always a good sign in a neurosurgeon, enlisted the help of Portuguese surgeon Pedro Almeida Lima to test the surgery.
So rather than, I don't know, eat an orange, this fucking guy is like, I know, I'm going to ice pick people's brains because that's easier.
Oh, the ice picking comes later.
Okay.
This isn't even the ice pick part.
Oh, God.
The procedure consisted of drilling 2 holes in the patient's head. So like here about, I know you people can't see me, but just like on the tops of the head on either side.
Like around the hairline.
Hairline, a little bit back farther.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we drill 2 holes in the patient's head and inject pure ethyl alcohol into the prefrontal cortex, which is just giving Jeffrey Dahmer.
I literally was just going to ask, like, was Jeffrey Dahmer just like following these in early primitive instructions?
I don't
to remember
have these
controllable, like, lobotomized boys.
Let me Google what he injected quick, because that is a
I'm
good
99%
question.
sure it was ethyl alcohol. Or maybe I just way too recently watched Breaking Bad.
No, it was muriatic acid.
Oh, okay. Still?
But it's still,
too close for comfort. I'm uncomfy.
It's not great. So he did this to disrupt the neuronal tracts that were believed to give rise to and reinforce the recurrent pattern of thought observed in mentally ill patients.
Leave my neuronal tract alone.
Hands off my neuronal
tract.
Keep your laws off my neuronal tract.
Literally, please fucking keep your laws off my neuronal tract.
Again, these are all just like theories.
Yeah.
And they're literally injecting shit into your brain.
This is what happens when we let men run things and like try new things. Never let a man try anything new.
No, never let a man, period.
Done.
Their first operation was considered a success because the patient appeared to have a reduction in their symptoms of severe paranoia and anxiety. That's because they didn't have thoughts anymore.
Right. Weird how your thoughts start to like ease up when they no longer exist.
Ease up.
Wouldn't that be nice? God damn it.
Okay.
Incredible results.
It was thought to be a success when their patient quit
thinking,
existing on the same level.
I can't.
In 1936, Walter Jackson Freeman II, Dr. Freeman, an this fucking guy, an American neurologist, modified Monitz's technique, describing his version of the operation as a lobotomy.
Okay.
On September 14th, 1936, Freeman and his partner James W. Watts, who was an American neurosurgeon, performed the first prefrontal lobotomy operation in the United States on a 63-year-old housewife named Alice Hood Hammett, who was suffering from insomnia and agitated depression. I couldn't find a lot of information about this patient, which I guess is probably for the best because HIPAA and whatever. But I think she died like 5 years later.
Oh, God.
I don't know what she died from, but yeah. So they did this operation at George Washington University Hospital. Freeman and Watts continued to perform several quote-unquote standard lobotomies, many of which happened in their private practice in Washington, D.C. So what they're doing now is still the drilling through the skull.
Yep.
It's important to note. In the 1940s, Canadian neurosurgeon Dr. Kenneth G. Mackenzie invented something called the leucotome, which is a cannula. It's like a thin tube. Okay, if you've ever gotten like hair out of your drain.
Yep.
And used a tool to do that.
Yeah, like
you might be familiar with the general concept of a cannula.
Okay.
So it's basically.
I thought it was cannula.
I looked it up. It's cannula.
What?
Because I thought it was cannula too.
It sounds like cooking oil. I refuse.
Google says it's cannula.
That's fine. I mean, I believe Google. Tomato, cannula, cannula.
Exactly. So it's a thin tube, and there's
That's
like
hollow.
And there's a wire that goes into the tube
for grabbing,
and then like comes back out.
Yeah.
So at the wire is made into a loop at the end So basically, you're putting this loop of wire into the hole that you make with the drill.
Yep.
And then when you push, I'm doing the sex symbol.
I see it, and it is deeply disturbing. I'm glad people can't see this.
You're going in and out of this thin tube with this flexible but somewhat rigid wire, a loop of the wire that then like grabs whatever is in the space at the end of the tube and then like pulls it out.
Even if that's brain material, connective tissue.
So it is used to cut the white matter in the brain during a lobotomy. So this wire is inserted a few times. Each time it's rotating to cut out a circular piece of like a core of this white matter and then pulling it out.
Oh.
So it's going in, you're rotating it 180 degrees to make like a circular core and then retracting the wire and pulling the whole thing out. So you're pulling out these cores of
brain tissue. Oh, oh God.
So again, we're still going in through the top or the side of the skull at this point.
Yep. Okay.
I have pictures on the drive, which will be on the blog, of this leucotome.
Oh, okay. What pictures do you have on the drive that
I have a lot of pictures on the
probably shouldn't go on the blog? My God.
Nothing that shouldn't go on the blog, I don't think, but I got a lot of pictures. So while this tool improved Monitz's method, Dr. Freeman began to lose confidence in the effectiveness of the standard lobotomy where you drill the holes in the head. He began to refine the procedure known as the transorbital lobotomy, which was less expensive, much faster, and as he said, it was more effective.
Okay.
So orbital meaning eye socket.
Yep.
This procedure had first been tested in 1937 by Italian psychosurgeon Amaro Fiamberti. I'm practicing my Italian.
Yep.
Performed this operation by forcing a cannula through the bony orbit at the back of the eye socket and injecting alcohol into the frontal lobe.
On a living patient?
Yeah.
I'm going to barf.
So Dr. Freeman, instead of using a tube and alcohol, he decided to use a literal ice pick to penetrate through the bone in the back of the eye socket. It's the path of least resistance to the brain.
Great.
That's why they were using it, the eye socket.
Somebody took a self-defense class, Freeman.
I did too.
You did.
So Dr. Freeman first practiced on cadavers with the ice pick, probably to like see how hard you had to tap. How easy it was to actually get back there. But then he started using a more medical sounding version of an ice pick, which is called an orbitoclast, when he performed the surgery on living patients. Because actual ice picks were employed in the initial experimentation and the orbitoclast looked exactly like a fucking ice pick, the procedure was dubbed,
an ice pick.
It's not. I have one right here. This was my prop. The procedure was dubbed the ice pick lobotomy. So I have a hammer and an orbitoclast that I got at an Oddities festival, and they're fucking hefty. So the orbitoclast is like a really long nail. It has a sharp end, but it's like a foot long. And then it has like it looks like kind of a hammer on the top. And let me just tap this for you so you can like get just paint a picture in your head.
Okay. No. I hear your cat.
It's heavy. It's
Ray
solid.
responded to that.
Ray did respond to it. Ray, here.
Don't lobotomize Ray. He's already unwell.
He's already lobotomized. So anyway, that's my orbitoclast and then the little hammer that goes with it. Well, it's not little. They're about the same length. I bet the orbitoclast weighs at least a pound. Or not the orbitoclast, the hammer. Orbitoclast, I would give it 6 ounces. But, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
It's intense.
That's a lot.
So I wanted to say a quick word about the white matter versus the gray matter.
Of the brain?
Yeah, because there is a difference. And this is a quote from How Stuff Works.
Ugh, love that site.
Quote, the brain is essentially composed of two different types of matter, gray and white. Gray matter includes the neurons or brain cells, along with their blood vessels and extensions. So this is what you picture when you picture the brain.
Okay.
White matter is basically in between all the lobes. This white matter comprises the axons or nerve fibers that connect the areas of gray matter and carry messages between them through electrical impulses. Mm-hmm. So a lobotomy was intended to sever the white matter between the different areas of gray matter. Because I was under the impression, like, before I started learning about lobotomies, I can't even say it was with this episode because it was way before this episode. But
Be honest.
I kind of thought that they just went in there and then just like squiggled up your brain. Like just,
that's what I thought. Kind of scrambled eggs.
It's not like that, but the intention is a little bit more intentional. It's to break up the white matter. It's to separate the connections between these parts of the brain.
I just feel like it's not precise enough.
Oh, it's not. It's not.
There's no way.
But they did know a little bit about how the brain worked. They knew what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, and we'll get to it, but I think the people who were practicing it were not so precise. And again, they didn't have scans. Mm-mm. They didn't have, x-rays or anything like that. I mean, I guess they did have x-rays, but they didn't have
like an MRI.
Scans. Yeah. Exactly. Let alone anything that could show them what they were doing like in real time. Mm-hmm. So they knew the goal, but I think the procedure sort of limited them as far as like how precise they were being.
Yeah, you think? Just a bit.
Just a bit. So on January 17th, 1946, Dr. Freeman performed the first ever transorbital lobotomy.
Okay.
In his Washington, D.C. office on a severely depressed housewife by the name of Sally Ellen Ionesco. Uh-huh. This procedure was conducted by rendering the patient unconscious through electroshock.
Yup.
Pleasant.
Shock them to sleep.
Oh, I can't. Dr. Freeman would then insert the ice pick above the eyeball, bang it through the eye socket.
Stop banging that.
I have a prop.
I need it to go away.
No, never.
No.
Bang it through the eye socket into the brain and make cuts into the patient's frontal lobe. And once he was done with one eye, he would repeat the same step in the other eye. Everything took 10 minutes or less. It was so fast.
To kill or at least ruin somebody's life. 10 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go ahead and defend transorbital lobotomies.
You're not.
But measuring the success at the time, I'm sure a lot of them were deemed successful.
Well, sure. If basically being like childlike or checked out is the goal, then yeah.
Yeah. I don't think most of them ended with one flew over the cuckoo's nest type.
It was like 15% ended in death. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember the percentage that was essentially like zombie-like or brain dead, but there were a lot in that state. Mm-hmm. It's not good.
Results varied.
Yep, widely.
Okay, so because this procedure was so simple and so quick, and because it didn't require actual drilling through the skull, this could be done by people who were not fucking surgeons.
Yep.
So
which probably didn't help with the varied results. Because talk about precision not being...
Also, like, reporting.
Right. I can't.
Yeah. So he also liked to show off to the gallery.
Oh, yeah.
Which was usually packed. He toured. Yeah. We'll get to the touring.
Yeah.
By doing two-handed lobotomies, meaning one pick in each eye at the same time.
Yeah.
The fuck?
Yeah. I don't know how he pulled that off, but yeah.
Okay, so also Dr. Freeman did not share his plans for the ice pick lobotomy with his partner, Dr. Watts. So when Dr. Watts found out about him doing these lobotomies through the eye socket in under 10 minutes, like wherever the fuck he wanted to.
Yeah.
He was fucking disgusted and argued that type of procedure should not be performed just casually, willy-nilly,
by anyone. Yeah.
In their private offices, like on their leather chairs with their desks, like a...
It's like you're going to a therapy appointment and then suddenly it's like, you know what? In 10 minutes, I could have you lobotomized.
Yep.
All of this could be over.
Mm-hmm. You
I'm
gotta
glad that somebody...
come or get your brain jiggled, but something's wrong with you. So Dr. Watts was like, that's fucked up. So their partnership ended. And from there, Freeman toured the country doing the surgery in various settings, including hotel rooms. He probably did them on like fucking street corners. They were just, he was just like, look how simple this is, guys.
Ugh.
Don't think I'm going to put this down anytime soon.
Barf.
In 1949, which was the peak year for lobotomies in the United States, 5,074 procedures were undertaken, reported. And by 1951, over 18,600 individuals had been lobotomized in the United States. An estimated 40% of Dr. Freeman's patients were gay men who were lobotomized to change their sexual orientation.
Wow.
A large portion of his patients were women. And in Dr. Freeman's peak lobotomy days, he once set his own personal record lobotomizing 25 women in a single day.
Okay.
Yeah.
He probably was doing it on fucking street corners. Step right up. Take a number. It's giving Dr. Love offering free mammograms.
Yes, totally. Door-to-door lobotomies.
I can't. Oh, it's so sick.
Yeah.
Stop rubbing that against your face.
I'm rubbing the hammered side, not the pointed side.
Oh my God.
It's cool to the touch.
Of course
steel.
it is.
It's a medical grade steel.
Yeah.
Lobotomies fell out of favor in the 1950s and 1960s. The last recorded lobotomy in the U.S. was done by Dr. Freeman in February of 1967, which was like yesterday.
What? 1967?
You're going to be... It gets worse. So that lobotomy ended in the death of a woman named Helen Mortensen because of a brain hemorrhage following the procedure.
Yeah.
And for that specific woman, that was her third lobotomy by Dr. Freeman.
What? Why?
Because she wasn't getting better. Wonder why. Yeah, she'd had 3 lobotomies, and the third one caused her to bleed out via brain. And that's just when he decided to stop. And that's just kind of when lobotomies, stopped being recorded anyway.
I'd be willing to bet he didn't decide to stop, but there was like public backlash about it. And so he was like, okay, I won't do this anymore. Because otherwise, why would he stop?
I'm trying to make a distinction between lobotomies and reported lobotomies because... I mean,
because he was literally traveling around teaching like psychiatrists how to do it.
Fucking shoe salesman. Anyone can do it.
So yeah, you're probably right. I bet there were a lot of unreported uses of this procedure.
It's so easy.
Ugh.
So there was a lot of criticism regarding lobotomies beginning as early as 1944.
Yeah, as early as when it started.
Right. In 1948, Norbert Wiener, author
Norbert Wiener.
a book called Cybernetics, or the Control and Communication in the Animal and the Machine, said, quote, prefrontal lobotomy has recently been having a certain vogue, probably not unconnected with the fact that it makes the custodial care of many patients easier. Mm-hmm. Let me remark in passing that killing them makes their custodial care even easier.
Yep. Yep.
So there were people who were not falling for this shit. Lobotomies as a medical procedure didn't really endure for very long. You know, there's like a 25-ish year period where they were used.
Pretty commonly used, yeah.
So it wasn't for a long period of time, but man, did they have a big impact. So these are some global stats. In the United States, approximately 40,000 people were lobotomized.
Oh my God.
In England, about 17,000 lobotomies were performed. Scandinavian hospitals lobotomized 2.5 times as many people per capita as hospitals in the U.S. According to another...
Come on, Scandinavia. Get your shit together.
Happiest country.
Yeah.
Not that Scandinavia is a country, but... According to another estimate, Sweden lobotomized at least 4,500 people between 1944 and 1966, mainly women. Mm-hmm. This figure includes young children.
Yeah.
In Denmark, there were about 4,500 known lobotomies. In Japan, the majority of lobotomies were performed on children with behavioral problems. Mm-hmm. In the Soviet Union, of all fucking places, banned the practice in 1950 on moral grounds.
Damn.
If the Soviet Union bans it in 1950 on moral grounds...
We need to take a long, hard look in the mirror, America.
Damn. In Germany, it was only performed a few times before they just didn't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. By the late 1970s, the practice of lobotomy had generally ceased around the globe, although it continued as late as the 1980s in France.
No way. Mm-hmm. Why? Oh, God.
I don't know. So that's kind of the background of lobotomies, and I want to talk about probably one of the most famous cases of lobotomies in the United States. Mm-hmm. Just because, I mean, we'll get to it, but it was kept under wraps for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And it had and has lasting implications on the discourse around disabilities in the U.S. So this is the story of Rosemary Kennedy of the Kennedys. Mm-hmm. Born on September 13th, 1918. She was a Virgo.
And a year younger than my grandma.
Oh, my God. She was one of 9 siblings, and she was also the oldest daughter. Mm-hmm. I am the eldest son.
I am the eldest boy.
Oh, eldest boy. That's so much more pathetic. Oh, my God.
It's really pathetic.
And Connor is like, you're not. No. I rewatched Succession. And
I need to.
So
I need to.
Good.
It's so good. I love it.
Okay, so Rosemary, she was known as Rosie with her family. So Rosie's life started out not great.
Yeah.
For being born into a super wealthy family. During her birth, the doctor was not immediately available because of an outbreak of the Spanish influenza epidemic. Mm-hmm. So he was like fucking busy. Mm-hmm. So the nurse ordered the mother, whose name was Rose Kennedy, to keep her legs closed.
Literally, like, that's what they told her to do. Like, we say that as a joke.
But shit, her baby's trying to be, like, I can't imagine.
No.
Keep your legs shut. Forcing the baby's head to stay in the birth canal for 2 hours.
That's horrifying. The fact that Rosie was even born alive.
Yeah.
Is kind of a miracle.
Yeah.
Because she could have suffocated.
Also, the baby's head is really malleable in order to get through the birth canal.
Mm-hmm.
And when the skull is compressed like that, the oxygen's not getting to the brain of the baby. So you want to get her through that most tight spot as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's why you fucking push so hard when you're in that, when it's time.
Yeah. Like,
get him the fuck out.
Like your brain is like, get her out.
Go.
Yeah, go. Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, that would be so scary. Poor Rose.
And just like so opposite of what your body is screaming at you to do.
Like so literally counterintuitive.
Keep your legs closed.
I can't.
This woman had 9 children. This was only like her third.
I have to go.
Me too. The action resulted in, like I said, a harmful loss of oxygen. As Rosie began to grow up, her parents noticed that she was not reaching the basic developmental steps that a baby normally reaches at certain months or years. Mm-hmm. At 2 years old, she had a hard time sitting up, crawling, and learning to walk. At 2.
Oh, poor thing.
Accounts of Rosie's behavior point to some sort of intellectual disability, but it's hard to know the scope of what it actually was, both because of diagnostic biases of the day of like the 1940s, but also the Kennedy family was just pretending that there was nothing wrong with her.
Yep.
They were sweeping all of this under the rug.
This is why you need to watch Grey Gardens. It's not about Rosie, but like...
No, it's not. I mean, yeah.
This family is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They're a lot.
Well, I have some free time tomorrow, so
yeah,
maybe tomorrow's my gray Friday. Ugh. I'll call you as soon as I watch it.
Will you please?
Yes.
Great. I love
that. We'll have a debrief.
Good.
So when Rosie was 11, she was sent to a special boarding school. And when she was 16, she was sent to like a convent where she had 3 special teachers just for her who sort of just like worked with her all day to kind of pass her, even though her reading, writing, spelling, and counting skills were reported to be at a 4th grade level, even though she was 16
years old. Yeah.
And for these efforts, the Kennedy family rewarded the school with a brand new tennis court.
Sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. Pass our girl. We'll give you a tennis court. Multiple news outlets, such as Women's Day, Parents, and the Boston Globe, interviewed the Kennedy family and also, quote unquote, Rosemary. But this was not a real interview because her father's assistant had just written out her responses for this Boston Globe interview.
Yep.
That she like either memorized or just copied. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I am enjoying life very much. I am doing social activities. I just got my teaching degree.
Right.
But like
she didn't.
She didn't.
Yeah. It's a lie.
Yeah. So these interviews made her out to be a smart young woman who, like I said, had gotten a degree in teaching, when in reality, she was hardly reading. When she did read, it was Winnie the Pooh.
Oh.
And she was just kind of being brought out and shown off at social gatherings when she would be escorted by like family members who would just be there to make her feel safe and comfortable and to appear quote unquote normal.
Yeah, they just kind of paraded her around. She didn't really talk to anybody.
No, which brings us to this. There was an incident that sort of points to this blind eye that everyone was turning. In 1938, Rosie was presented as a debutante to King George VI and Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace during her father's service as the United States ambassador to the UK. So poor Rosie had practiced this really complicated royal curtsy for hours.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I just hit Ray.
With your stuff, with your tools.
I was pretending to curtsy and and he jumped up on my desk. It's really his fault. He hit himself.
You're right. Blame the child.
So she'd been like practicing this complicated curtsy and then
Texas dip.
her taxes dip. And at the event, she tripped and nearly fell in front of like everyone. The world.
Yeah, because this would, I mean, it obviously wasn't like televised.
38, not televised, but like.
It was in international papers. It was circulated.
Well, people knew about it, but her mother, Mother Rose, never discussed the incident and treated the debut as a triumph. When she did trip, the crowd didn't react, and the king and queen smiled as if nothing happened. So it was kind of like everyone was in on it.
Yep.
And they were just like,
they were like
job.
Truman showing her.
Ugh. Yeah. So, I mean, just the fact that this is kind of called out like on her Wikipedia page makes me think
it's really sad.
It's really sad. Not that she should have been embarrassed or like shamed
not.
about it, but it is an example of how people were just ignoring it.
Yep. She wasn't seen. She wasn't acknowledged as the person that she actually was. She was hidden in plain sight. She was paraded around. I mean, this is not ethical treatment. I mean, it's not okay.
It's not okay. So by the time Rosie was 22, she was acting out in violent rages, hitting and injuring others, and also experiencing convulsions.
Ugh, can you blame her?
I mean,
for acting out?
I don't know what the convulsions were about because, again, she never received a legit diagnosis. After being kicked out of a summer camp in Western Massachusetts, she was sent to live at a convent in Washington, D.C., where she kept sneaking out at night to, like, go out and party, hang out with friends, go out with boys, whatever. She's fucking 22.
Yeah.
The nuns at the convent were concerned that she was having sex.
Yeah, she's not there to become a nun, bitch. Like, duh.
Yeah. And her parents began to worry that she was going to, like, get pregnant and embarrass the family and damage their various political careers because they were all like very politically ambitious, very image focused.
Well, and the Kennedys, I mean, this family was like a famous and powerful family, both
the fucking Kennedys,
inside and outside of politics. So like they were in control of a lot of shit, and something like this could really be a stain.
Both sides, the mothers and the fathers, the Fitzgeralds and the Kennedys. Like, it was a dynasty. It was a royal family.
Yep.
Okay, so her parents were worried that she was gonna damage their reputation. So when Rosie was 23, her dad, Joseph, learned of this new form of psychosurgery that could help calm her down.
There it is.
Take her down a peg or two. Stop being so embarrassing.
Let's make you easier to wrangle.
Yeah. So he had Rosie brought in for a lobotomy in November of 1941 without telling his wife, by the way.
Well, why would he? He owns the whole family.
I mean, I think legally you didn't have to tell your wife about anything medical until like the fucking 60s. You
probably didn't have to tell your wife
70s.
Shit. You could, I mean, wives couldn't even have a bank account like around that time.
I forget what I was watching something yesterday where like a president or someone did not tell his own wife that she had uterine cancer, that she was dying of uterine cancer. He just let her die and never told her.
Yep. Nope.
I don't remember where I was watching that. Okay. So didn't tell his wife that Rosie was going in for a lobotomy in November 1941. Author Ronald Kessler described her surgery in his book called Sins of the Father, which was like a biography of Joseph Kennedy. So, quote, after Rosemary was mildly sedated, Dr. Watts, remember Dr. Watts?
Oh, God.
Recalled, quote, we went through the top of the head. I think she was awake. She had a mild tranquilizer. I made a surgical incision in the brain through the skull. It was near the front. It was on both sides. We just made a small incision, no more than an inch.
Ugh.
The instrument Dr. Watts used looked like a butter knife.
No.
He swung it up and down to cut the brain tissue. Quote, we used an instrument inside, and As Dr. Watts cut, Dr. Freeman asked Rosemary some questions. For example, he asked her to recite the Lord's Prayer or sing God Bless America or count backwards.
Yeah, just making sure that they weren't like actively killing her or fucking up her speech, but it's a little too late. While we're scrambling the egg, that is your frontal lobe. Can you recite God Bless America real quick to make sure we don't scramble too hard?
We made an estimate on how far to cut based on how she responded. And when Rosemary began to become incoherent, that's when they stopped. Bertram S. Brown, director of the National Institute of Mental Health, who was previously an aide to President Kennedy, told Arthur Kessler that Joe Kennedy referred to his daughter Rosemary, okay, these are his quotes, not mine.
Yep.
Referred to his daughter Rosemary as mentally retarded rather than mentally ill in order to protect her brother JFK's reputation for a presidential run.
So and they could say the R word, but they didn't want to say ill. Like the way they said it had certain connotations.
I mean, the R word didn't have the ramifications that they do now. But
of course not.
It's my impression that they used that phrase to indicate that it wasn't anything that could be fixed.
Right. That there was like some kind of maybe cognitive disability without
that she was born with.
Right, without saying she's ill, she's sick, like there's
and that would put the stigma on the family. Yeah.
Wow. So what the fuck?
Basically suggesting that she was like somehow damaged from birth rather than she's ill, she needs to get better.
Yeah, and now we've botched a lobotomy and she's worse than she's ever fucking been.
Oh, the public didn't know about this till the 80s, and we'll get to it.
Ugh.
And, quote, that the family's, quote, lack of support for mental illness is part of a lifelong family denial of what was really so. So the whole family swept all of this under the rug and completely mischaracterized her whole situation and also her experience with this medical procedure.
Hiding less than perfect family members is the name of the Kennedy game, baby.
Yeah, it's not the only example.
No, Grey Gardens. I won't let it go.
Okay. So it quickly became apparent that the procedure had caused immense harm to Rosemary. Her mental capacity diminished to that of a 2-year-old child.
My God.
She couldn't walk or speak intelligibly, and she was incontinent.
No.
She was immediately institutionalized.
Oh, this poor woman. I cannot believe this.
So she's 23 years old at this time. She's young.
Yeah.
So she's institutionalized first at a private psychiatric hospital just 90 miles north of New York City, and then later at the St. Coletta School for Exceptional Children in Jefferson, Wisconsin. Her father had a private house built for her near the grounds, which the nuns referred to as the Kennedy Cottage. 2 Catholic nuns named Sister Margaret Ann and Sister Leona provided her care along with a student and a woman who worked on ceramics with her 3 nights a week. Rosie had a car that could be used to take her for rides, and she also had a dog that she could take on walks.
Yeah, some little comforts.
Her mother didn't visit her for 20 years.
Oh my God.
And her father never saw her again.
What?
Her siblings did not know where she was. They were only told that she was, quote unquote, reclusive.
Oh, okay. So that they're raised thinking she left and didn't want to see them.
When JFK was elected president in 1961, the Kennedys, the parents, revealed that Rosie had been deemed, quote, mentally retarded, but didn't say anything about the lobotomy.
And so Rosie is JFK's sister?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
I think he's the second oldest, and she's I believe the third oldest. She's the oldest daughter. But JFK is Rosie's older brother.
Got it.
So her father, Joseph, had a stroke later that year in 1961 that left him unable to walk or speak, to which I say...
Karma's a bitch, isn't it, Joseph?
Yeah. And it was only then that Rosie's siblings learned where she was and what had happened to her, probably because her father wasn't controlling the narrative anymore. It was her mother was like, yeah, this is what happened.
Oh my God. It wasn't until Joseph literally was rendered physically incapable of speaking that Rose could tell the truth about what had happened to her daughter.
All 8 of her siblings knew what happened.
It makes me wonder, and I don't, just forgive and say it's fine that Rosie's parents never visited her or didn't for 20 years. But it really makes you wonder if Joseph was very much controlling. Like, if he's so worried about appearances, it's like, no, Rose, you can't go visit Rosie because then people will see you doing it. And then they'll know where she is and what her condition is.
I'm sure. I'm sure it was a myriad of things. I'm sure it was shame. I'm sure it was partially that. I'm sure Rose was like, what the fuck happened to my daughter? And maybe she was afraid to go see what happened. Oh, right, because
she didn't even know about the lobotomy.
She didn't know about she didn't know about it.
Wow. Oh, that's so fucked up.
Okay, so... Rosie's lobotomy didn't become public knowledge until 1987, when historian Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote about it in her book, The Fitzgeralds and the Kennedys.
Wow.
So Papa Joe died in 1969, and after that, the Kennedys began to involve Rosie in their family life once again. They flew her out to Florida, D.C., and to their family, her childhood home in Cape Cod. By this point, she had regained her ability to walk, but she did walk with a limp. She was never again able to speak clearly, and her arm was fucked up. Like, it was palsied, I guess.
Oh, okay. So she didn't have much use of one of her arms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her sister Eunice later founded the Special Olympics. So that's kind of its own really cool story in itself. But basically, Eunice was like, yes, I have this disabled
My sister's disabled, yeah.
But I want to create an event to focus on people's abilities over their disabilities and to not focus on any one individual. Like, don't focus on my sister just because she's a Kennedy. We're going to spread this out. And yeah, exactly. Rosie died from natural causes on January 7th, 2005 at the age of 86.
She lived a long life.
She did. And that's like, I don't want to say it's kind of tragic in itself, but like, she was so young when she had this procedure.
Right.
And she lived so much of her life with the after effects.
Exactly. It's tragic because they took away her life as it could have been. And we don't know what could have been for Rosie if she hadn't been fucking lobotomized.
Yep. So her siblings, Jean, Eunice, Patricia, and her brother Ted were by her side when she passed away. And she's buried beside her parents in this auto-corrected to Hollywood. That's not Hollywood. It's like I think it's Hollywood Cemetery in Brookline, Massachusetts.
Wow.
And then just one last thing I want to say. Barbara Gibson and Ted Schwartz are authors. They wrote in their book about the family's matriarch, Rose, and her family, called The Best and Worst of Their Lives and Times. They said, quote, Father Joe, had 2 principal concerns about Rosemary. She was not the competition-oriented ideal of Kennedy womanhood, and he thought her sexuality was too intense and untempered by the moral strictures to which the other daughters had adhered. Joe destroyed a portion of her brain rather than risk what she might become if allowed to follow her own path in life.
Wow. I am making a note that I want to do a drunk dive on the Kennedys and like the Kennedy curse and the Kennedy family.
You should, because this is one intense but small chapter of how fucked up that family was.
And Rosie, we're being very clear. We're not saying that the family is fucked up because Rosie was born like developmentally disabled because of what happened.
We're saying they're fucked up from
what they did to her. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
just in case anyone misunderstood that.
Okay. All right. So that is some background on lobotomies and my horrifically depressing segment.
I'm shook.
As you should be.
I'm so glad you covered the Rosie Kennedy case because I didn't know a lot of those details.
There were some other rumors, like, I think they're just rumors, but like one of them was like when her mother finally did come to visit her, she couldn't say anything, but she did slap her across the face. I found no proof of that. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to really put that out there. So let's just, I just did, but I don't think it's true.
Right. Well, we don't know. I mean, this is one of those situations where it's like there really is no way to know. The people that were in that room are now dead.
So much has been covered up. There's so much speculation. There's so much rumor. Mm-hmm.
Surrounding the Kennedys just in general. Mm-hmm. That's one of those things where it's like, you're going to believe what you're going to believe, but we take some of those stories with a real grain of salt. And also with the understanding that there is so much trauma wrapped up in that family's story that like behavior like that isn't super shocking, but also doesn't just come out of nowhere or even I think come from a place of like hatred. It's like people respond in weird ways out of trauma and it just is what it is.
If my mother didn't visit me in a mental institution for 20 years, slapping her would probably be
the least I would do. In the
cards.
I'd beat the shit out of her.
But there's a lot of like rumor kind of folklore around this family and these incidents because of all the secrecy and cover-ups and all that. So anyway, excited for your drunk dive. And
I'll get deeper into it.
Thanks.
I'll crack the case.
All right. Well.
Why don't you put those away while we take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, shall we?
One more.
I hate you. I quit. I'll hear that in my nightmares for the rest of my fucking life.
With the gray man.
Pale man.
Pale man.
Get it right.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. Let's take a quick break.
Okay, y'all, I'm going to hit you with a really shocking statistic because if it shocked me, it's going to shock you. And if I have to know this, you all have to know this. So did you know that traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat?
So gross.
It's shocking. And that can lead to acne, allergies, stuffy noses, and honestly, it's just gross. Like, I don't know. It's wild. So Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning antibacterial bedding, such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require up to 3 times less laundry.
That's my favorite part, honestly.
Y'all, we're busy.
We're busy. And laundry is my least favorite chore.
Oh, it's the worst.
So these sheets are they've got self-cooling properties for better quality sleep. So using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long. All night long. So you can get a better night's sleep every night. Like Amanda said, they're also self-cleaning. These sheets are infused with that silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. So they don't stink, If you don't change your sheets every week or however long, you're supposed to change them a lot more frequently than I actually do.
For sure. We all know.
And after a while, they just get a little bit musty. But not these. They also offer comfort and quality. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and they feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. I love hotel sheets.
Yeah, and these are scratching that hotel sheet itch for me, let me tell you.
They're also designed for your skin, so stop sleeping on bacteria, a bed of bacteria. This can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne, plus it doesn't smell good. You can kind of feel it when it gets a little funky. Don't do that. Sleep clean with Miracle.
Yes, go to trymiracle.com/gals to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save 40%. And if you use our promo code GALS at checkout, you'll also get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product. It's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you will get a full refund. So upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/gals and use the code GALS to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/gals to treat yourself. And thank you so much, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
All right, are you ready for my case? If you thought we were done with Dr. Walter Freeman, we soups weren't.
Excellent, and I'm ready.
We maybe never will be.
Mm-mm.
So this is a story about how a young boy, now man, named Howard Dully got incredibly...
I've read his book.
Yeah, honey.
Oh,
yeah, we'll get to his book.
Boy.
Yeah.
Sorry to give his book away.
No. Oh my gosh, I'm going to plug his book, so that's perfect.
Okay, good.
So this is a story about how Howard Dully got incredibly lucky after getting incredibly unlucky. Unlucky to wind up in the clutches of Dr. Walter Freeman, the popularizer of the transorbital lobotomy.
He was like an evangelical, like traveling.
He literally did.
Snake. Yeah, I know.
He was a literal snake oil salesman,
Evangelista
for transorbital lobotomy.
Not great. Probably performing them in a tent.
Probably. But Howard was lucky that this, like, doctor monster hubris demon didn't kill him or leave him.
Hubris demon.
As the doctor himself put it, a, quote, surgically induced child forever.
Jesus Christ.
That was one of the, like, goal outcomes.
It was a goal?
According to Dr. Freeman.
To keep them as a child?
Correct.
Oh, God.
Like, easy to manage, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
Despite the fact that a permanent childlike state seemed to be exactly what this doctor and Howard's quite literally evil stepmother, Lou, were after.
Oh, God.
So Howard was born in 1948 to Rodney and June Dully in Oakland, California. He was Rodney and June's first and therefore eldest child. I think he had at least one sibling that was related to him by blood, and then he had some step siblings. And he was extremely bonded to his mother. His father once said, quote, "I could have dropped dead, but it wouldn't have made a bit of difference. She had you." Like she was obsessed and in love with Howard, and Howard was equally obsessed and in love with her. Like, obviously, any child is going to be a little obsessed with their mommy, but I think it was like even beyond that.
Like in an unhealthy way or like a sweet way?
A sweet way.
Okay.
A sweet way. But beautiful things rarely last. And in 1954, tragedy struck when June died of cancer when Howard was like barely 6 years old. I think he was about 5. Howard took the loss incredibly hard, just like any child would. But this event was not handled well by the adults in Howard's life, including his own father.
Okay.
Leaving Howard completely traumatized. So his father, Rodney, with, like I said, the support of the adults in the family, simply didn't tell him that his mother was dead.
That she died?
Nope.
Was she just at a farm upstate?
One day his mother was alive, like she was sick, but she was in his life, and the next she was gone. And nobody explained to him what that meant. No one explained that she wouldn't be coming back.
That is so much more traumatizing than telling him that his beloved mother died.
It's sick.
It's really sick.
I understand that, like, parents
like
are humans.
Theme. There's a theme in our episode, and it's not lobotomies.
It's not, like, these cases are so connected, not by lobotomies, which is shocking.
God.
I can't. So Howard recalls, quote, "As it was, I thought she had left me. I was afraid she didn't ever want to see me again. I was afraid she didn't love me. What other explanation could there be?"
That's so sad.
And his dad just wasn't answering any questions.
Not taking questions.
Yep.
No
I will not be
questions
taking questions at this time or ever.
Oh my God.
So it's like, oh, she disappeared,
God,
which would be agony.
50s were fucked.
Y'all. It honestly makes me like soften a little bit on boomers. Not much, Mom, but enough because the boomer generation was raised by this Rodney generation where it's like, well, I don't know how to deal with this emotionally devastating news to my son, so I'm just not going to tell him. And all the adults in charge were just like, all right, we just won't say anything. We'll never mention her.
God,
he'll eventually get over it.
Well, importance of therapy. You got to break these fucking cycles because that's all it is.
There it is.
Wow. Oh my God, that's like so fucked up.
Trauma, born of trauma. And when that trauma touches you, it becomes, unfortunately, your mantle to carry and your mantle to dismantle.
Yep.
Anyway, God, I can't. So after her death, or in poor Howard's estimation, after she up and left, neighbors picked up the household slack with cooking and cleaning, and it's through these chores that a real-life, honest-to-God, wicked stepmother entered the picture. So, like, just some gal who I think lived nearby was, like, helping, got to know Rodney. Her name was Lucille. Yep. Her name was Lucille, but she went by Lou Cox. And she would marry Rodney within 2 years of June's death because cishet men cannot fucking be alone.
Literally not. Not with kids, at least.
Fuck no. They'd all crumble. Mm-hmm. Rodney at this time, God bless him. He was doing everything he could to support his family. He was working 3 jobs at the time. So Lou was all of a sudden the primary caregiver, having replaced his beloved mother, June, who, by his estimation, had left him.
That's so sad.
Howard recounts that Lou hated him. She was a punitive, rigid, cruel, strict disciplinarian who treated him much more harshly than her own 2 sons, who were younger than Howard. There was a set of rules for them and another for him. And I believe he had at least one younger sibling, again, that was June's child, but that June had died when the younger sibling was still like a baby. So the baby had no memory of June. And so not talking about her didn't really have that much of an impact. This baby essentially grew up with Lou as their mother.
Yeah. For better or worse.
For better or worse. So I think because Howard was old enough to remember his mom and know that Lou wasn't his mom.
Set him apart.
It set him apart, and she treated him differently, and she was very fucking harmful to him. She was abusive to him.
Well, he probably, I would imagine he asked about his mother, and she was probably like, I'm your mother now.
I have no doubt in my mind that this woman was a real piece of shit. There was a set of rules for them and another for him. This was like a real life horror version of Cinderella playing out in his life.
Cinderella.
And like children do when in distress, Rosie, Howard acted out. He misbehaved. He rebelled. He did like all of the things that like teens and tweens do. Around this time, he's like 10 or 11. So he's lying, which like same. He's shoplifting, which like same. He's smoking cigs, same. He's hating his homework. He's not doing it, same.
Aww.
Looking back, no, nothing new. And looking back, he himself says that like if I were doing these behaviors now, I likely would have gotten like an ADHD diagnosis. Like my heart is just with this kid.
Yeah, or just it just seems like really regular lashing out, acting
kid
out
stuff.
If your beloved mother dies and no one fucking tells you about it.
My beloved mother didn't die, and I did a lot of that shit. We had some trauma in my house with like my dad being sick, but like every kid tests boundaries like that. What's the point of being a preteen or a teen if you're not gonna fucking fuck around and find out? That's the whole point.
Yeah.
But the reaction to his behavior was extreme, like beyond the era standard spankings by both parents. He particularly recalled the time that Lou hit him over the head with the metal end of a vacuum cleaner and then hit him again and again when he simply refused to react to her doing this. He was like, I'm not even going to dignify your behavior with a reaction from me. And so she
kept doing it.
So she kept doing it and belittling him, asking him over and over, like, did that hurt? Did that hurt?
Oh.
To a child.
The big end of a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah. And this is a vacuum cleaner in like the 60s.
Yeah.
So it's like, that shit's heavy. That's not like a lightweight cordless Dyson. Okay.
No. Oh, man.
Then at age 12, Howard hit puberty and with it a considerable growth spurt. So now he was taller, he's stronger, and like wicked stepmother Lou is starting to get worried that she won't have the upper hand in these physical discipline sessions and in just controlling this kid. And like, what is she going to do to abuse him if he decides to defend himself? He's bigger than her now. Dully recalls an incident where it really seemed the tables had turned. Quote, Lou was a fairly small woman, and it finally got to the point where she'd spank me and I would laugh. I think that scared her. Because it's like, you can't hurt me. You're just this like little wafy gal. LOL.
Just wait till I just brush you aside.
Uh-huh.
Not that that's what he was thinking, but that's probably what she was afraid of.
No, and there's no indication that he fought back. He mostly just tried to like, you know,
get through it till he could move out.
Get through it and not give power to her behavior by reacting with like fear and pain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he like really held, I have to imagine, really held a lot of real fear and pain back from this woman to try and take power away from her. And that's like fucking pretty badass for a kid. No child, no person should ever have to fucking do that. And he did. So his parents, but like, let's be honest, it was Lou, because Rodney had completely checked out, which again sounds just like the Cinderella story. Like stepmom comes in, she's
her
running.
Fucking dad?
He's working 3 jobs. He's just like,
I mean, where was Cinderella's dad?
I don't know.
He's like not even in the story.
Barely. I think in Cinderella's story, the dad was like so bereft by the loss of his beloved bride that he just kind of like went off and did his own thing. And like essentially abandoned his child in the hands of his new wife, which is essentially what Rodney did.
Yeah.
Absent. So Lou is looking for ways to control Howard. They were taking him to all of these like behavioral doctors, psychiatrists, and even neurosurgeons. And these doctors are like, there's nothing wrong with this kid. His behavior is normal considering what's going on in his world. Like nothing is wrong with him. But this was not the answer Lou wanted, so she kept looking for a doctor who would, quote unquote, help. Heavy quotes.
Oh, God.
Enter Dr. Walter Freeman, who believed that mental illness was related to overactive emotions and that by, quote, cutting the brain, he cut away these feelings, end quote.
Jesus.
In 1950, Dr. Freeman's lobotomy revolution was in full swing. Newspapers advertised it as, quote, easier than curing a toothache. The brain-destroying bastard had been taking his freakish roadshow all across the country and unfortunately came into contact with wicked stepmother Lou. I think that they were located in West Virginia, and he did a ton of work in West Virginia. Like, a ton. Like, he was over West Virginia. They loved it.
I think they were based in D.C., so isn't that way close to
proximity.
Close to Virginia?
Yep.
Yeah.
It took Lou 2 weeks to convince Dr. Freeman after like months, possibly over a year of other psychiatrists and other professionals saying there's nothing wrong with this kid. It took her 2 weeks to convince Dr. Freeman, who again thinks his magical brain stabbing is the answer to all problems of the mental realm, that Howard needed to be, quote unquote, treated. Dr. Freeman had gone as far as to diagnose Howard as suffering from childhood schizophrenia since age 4. Although, once again, numerous other medical and psychiatric professionals who had seen Howard Dully did not detect a psychiatric disorder at all, and often blamed poor parenting by his stepmother and trauma that he had experienced in the household, related not only to his mom's alleged disappearance / death, but also just how he was being abused by his stepmother. It's like, yeah, this is why he's acting this way. Fucking get your shit together.
Well, she's not going to hear that, so...
No. So Dr. Freeman was like a gift from God for her. Here are Dr. Freeman's actual notes on Howard's case. Mrs. Dully came up to say that Howard has been unbelievably defiant with a savage look on his face, and at times she was almost afraid. He doesn't react either to love or to punishment. He objects to going to bed, but then sleeps well. Okay, that's me now at 36.
That's every child.
He does a good deal of daydreaming, and when asked about it, he says, I don't know.
That's every child.
He turns a room's lights on when there's broad sunlight outside. He hates to wash. He doesn't like bath time.
Oh my God.
On October 26, 1960, Howard is a rather tall, slender, somewhat withdrawn type of individual. The first interview today was largely a matter of getting acquainted. He told me about his paper route, which brings him some $20 each month, and he's saving up to get a record player. Howard is rather evasive about talking about things that go on in the home. November 30th, 1960, Mrs. Dully came in for a talk about Howard. Things have gotten much worse, and she can barely endure it. I explained to Mrs. Dully that the family should consider the possibility of changing Howard's personality by means of transorbital lobotomy.
Oh.
Mrs. Dully said it was up to her husband and that I would have to talk to him and make it stick.
Oh, God, that's
He wrote
so
this
foul.
in his notes.
This is so gross.
December 3rd, 1960. Mr. and Mrs. Dully have apparently decided to have Howard operated on. I suggested they not tell Howard anything about it.
Trend.
Reading this again, it makes me like emotional. Like it makes me tear up. I just can't believe what we are willing to do to children or anyone. I don't know. There's just it's really fucked up. It's really fucked up.
When you have the directive of a physician or someone who you presume knows better than you.
But like she sought him out knowing that like he was famous for doing this.
I'm not coming to the defense of either of them,
they're
especially
both complicit.
her.
They're all complicit.
But when I'm thinking of his dad for primarily,
sure. It's like, oh, I went to this doctor. I found this doctor who can help us. Of course.
And my wife found a doctor. My wife takes care of all the day-to-day, blah, blah, blah. She found a doctor who said he can fix him. And
1,000%.
We trust doctors.
She's a monster who found another monster who is willing to do her dirty work. Period. Yeah. Full stop.
Again, not defense, but like psychologically, the things that you can agree to and follow through with.
Mm-hmm. December 17th, 1960. I performed transorbital lobotomy. This is the physician's service report. Transorbital lobotomy. A sharp instrument was thrust through the orbital roof and moved so as to sever brain pathways in the frontal lobes. $200 for surgery, which would be like $1,300 today. January 4th, 1961.
That's cheaper than orthodontic. That's so cheap. Yeah. That's like you get a crown. It's more than that.
Yep. Oh. So this is like post-op. I told Howard what I had done to him today, and he took it without a quiver. He sits quietly grinning most of the time and offering nothing. So Howard recalls being wheeled into an operating theater so spectators could watch from the seats. He was the youngest patient, at least at that time that we know of, to receive this ice pick lobotomy procedure, or at least the youngest to survive.
Oh, good.
I did read at least one report that there was a 4-year-old who was lobotomized and did not survive.
Oh.
4 years old. Likely for behavioral problems.
I can't go there.
No, it's so fucked up. The last thing Howard remembers is being electroshocked into unconsciousness, as is Freeman's move. Freeman inserted 2 skewer-like steel knives into his skull, entering through the inside of the right and left eye sockets. According to Howard's recollection, quote, he poked these knitting needles into my skull through my eye sockets and then swirled them around until he had scrambled things up enough.
It is like a knitting needle.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the size and shape of a knitting needle.
Yep.
Ugh.
So in a lot of cases of lobotomy, patients would die about 15% of the time, become vegetative, or permanently childlike. As I was researching, I came across a case that talked about the childlike state, and this is the case of Anna Ruth Channels, which is fascinating. I wanted to touch on it super briefly here, and this is a recollection from Anna's daughter, Carol. So, like, this is one of the better outcomes of lobotomy, and I put better in, like I said, heavy quotations. This is like one of the more desired outcomes because it was so often used as a response to like lashing out behavior or behavior that we didn't understand or made us uncomfortable. And people wanted to control that behavior or eradicate that behavior. So Carol says, Walter Freeman promised she would just be happy. Everything would be fine. And who wouldn't go rah-rah for that when you're hurting so badly? The procedure cured Carol's mom of her headaches, but left her with the mind of a child. Did she worry about stuff? Nope, didn't worry, just as Freeman promised. She didn't worry. She had no concept of social graces. If someone was having a gathering at their home, she had no problem just walking into their house and taking a seat. Not a problem. When they brought her home, she did not know how to do the activities of daily living, even the most basic things like toileting and bathing, just like Rosie.
Mm.
My aunt taught her from the very beginning. She wasn't the mother that I would ever describe as being motherly. She was so smart, but she had no place to put it. The only outlet she had was beating every pinball machine in town and knowing how many pennies were in the jar at the carnival.
Oh my God.
She was the greatest playmate we ever had and the best friend, and we loved her to death, but I never remember calling her mama or mommy or anything. It was like having a little sibling.
Oh my God.
I never even thought of my mother as my daughter's grandmother, and I never even took my daughter to see her. So she never even got to have that. I'm told that...
How old was she how old was her mother when her mother was lobotomized?
I'm not 100% sure, but Carol was quite
like
young.
She was young.
Yeah, I think Carol was like maybe 6 or 7. And I think that her mother was maybe in her late 20s, maybe early 30s, and was suffering from...
Just never remembered her as her mother.
No. She was suffering from some depression, other mental health issues, and lobotomy was recommended, and it infantilized her. Like, she lost her ability to be an adult.
Oh.
Quote, I'm told that Dr. Freeman went to West Virginia and interviewed my mother after the lobotomy and that he'd considered her outcome excellent. That's probably the most insulting thing I've ever heard.
Oh.
Yeah. This man inflicted a lot of trauma on a lot of people and a lot of families.
Jesus Christ.
But
Yikes.
God bless the brain plasticity of the young, and what I can only attribute to an actual miracle, because Howard came through his procedure relatively unscathed, though the real and full effects of the procedure had on him may never be known, because he was so young when this took place. He was 12 and his brain was still growing. So we actually have no idea who he could have grown up to become. It's just very lucky that he grew up to become a functioning adult and like a pretty happy one.
And didn't bleed out.
Yep. That he grew up at all because he didn't fucking die.
Yeah.
It's a complicated grief over a future that he never even got a glimpse of before it was irrevocably altered. Like, we just don't know.
Yeah, because like what are you grieving exactly?
Right.
Just a possibility, you know?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, all of us grieve possibility every day in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a really significant example.
It's a whole future. It's not just like
it's an entire
one
future.
Occurrence. It's
Correct.
a life.
Yep. So he said, quote, my brain, when Freeman got to it, was young. It was still growing. After the surgery, it adapted to the lobotomy and found ways to compensate for it.
The
In
brain
an adult,
is fucking amazing.
The brain is unbelievable. Like, they talk about the like full removals of a hemisphere of the brain because of tumors or other issues. And when done in children, like, the brain really can almost fully compensate for a missing half.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, that plasticity is key. This procedure in adults it's not going to give, like, you're not going to heal from it the same way that a child can. And I wouldn't ever wish this procedure on a child either.
No. It's like that story. I read this in a reputable magazine a long time ago, but I don't know how true it is. But I'm gonna it's not how stuff works. It was The Week, The Week magazine. Great magazine.
Mm-hmm.
This guy had like a slow leak on his brain. And it was like slowly, like his cranium was slowly filling with fluid. So it was very slowly compressing his brain towards one side of his skull until there was just like a fucking like sliver of it left. It was a percent. It was like a very small percentage of what.
But he'd just been an
adult
his brain had just been compensating along the way.
Yes. It was so slow that like at some point he like complained of a headache and they sent him in for like an MRI and they were like, wow, your skull is mostly fluid. And the whole joke was his wife was like, well, I knew you were a fucking idiot.
Oh my God. Classic wife response.
But he totally compensated for it over time. Like, that's amazing.
The brain is unbelievable. It's beyond our it's funny that a human organ, like an organ that we have, obviously lots of things have brains, but
I think it's a muscle.
Either way, it's so beyond our comprehension. I can't.
Totally.
So he continues to say, in an adult, if the right hemisphere is destroyed or damaged that severely, forget it. That person would be finished. When Dully woke the day after the procedure, his eyes were swollen and bruised, and he was running a high fever. And there are photos. There's a photo of him on the drive from like a couple days after he was lobotomized. He just kind of looks like he has 2 black eyes. He recalls the severe pain in his head and the discomfort of his hospital gown, which gaped open at the back. He had no idea what had happened.
Oh, he just felt a draft.
Yeah. Quote, I was in a mental fog, Dully says. I was like a zombie. I had no awareness of what Freeman had done. Quote, when my stepmother saw the operation didn't turn me into a vegetable, she got me out of the house. I was made a ward of the state. It took me years to get my life together. Through it all, I've been haunted by questions. Did I do something to deserve this? Can I ever be normal? And most of all, why did my dad let this happen?
So it didn't fuck him up as much as his stepmom hoped it would.
Yep. In 44 years, we've never discussed it once, not even after my stepmother died. Which that does change, which we'll get to it, but like...
Howard.
You heard that correctly. When he wasn't incapacitated to the extent that Lou wanted so that he could be completely controlled, she had him removed from their home entirely.
That means that Dr. Freeman told her, don't worry, he's going to be like a fucking vegetable by the time I'm done with him.
He'll be childlike. He won't be able to behave this way because he won't have the capacity to do it. That was like the promise of the procedure.
That is so fucked up.
And like the rage I feel that they literally lobotomized this child and then kicked him out anyway when it didn't do what she wanted it to. Like I felt physically ill reading this.
Yeah.
He was institutionalized in a state hospital, then transferred to a school for children with behavioral problems. Howard spent his teen years in and out of such schools and mental institutions. Most of his 20s were spent in jail. And in his 30s, he entered into a pretty severe cycle of substance use disorder, primarily alcohol use, that often left him incarcerated. And he eventually became unhoused. He was unable to care for himself for the most part. It wasn't until his 40s that Howard began to come out of this cycle of horror. And like, according to his own story, it's not like he wasn't able to care for himself because of the lobotomy. I think this was mostly the trauma. It's not just the procedure. It's all of the trauma leading up to the procedure. It's the trauma surrounding the procedure. It's the complete lack of support that he had from his family and his community. I mean, he just, like, anyone, lobotomized or not, anyone with these kinds of circumstances is going to experience really rough outcomes. Really fucking rough.
I mean, he did write a book, Ghost Rope, not Ghost Rope, but
no, he did. With
the help of somebody else, but like still.
He had help. But he was able to tell his story, and we're going to get to kind of how he was able to do that. So after becoming sober in his 40s, he got a college degree in computer information systems. He became a bus driver in San Jose, California. He just like decided one day, like, fuck this. I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't live like this.
Yeah, not going to be a victim anymore.
Yep. He got married. He became a father. He became a grandfather. He lived a beautiful, full life after dodging brain destruction at the hands of Dr. Freeman and trauma, alcoholism, and homelessness at the hands of his family and the state who had been charged with his care. Like, when I say this is a miracle, I truly believe it. This man had so many odds stacked against him and like huge systems working against him. And he not only survived those systems, but like forged a path forward so that he could thrive in the later years of his life. And it's really fucking admirable. He didn't start researching what had happened to him until his 50s when NPR reached out to him about his experience because they did a whole like thing about lobotomies. And I think a lot about Dr. Freeman. And he was on record. It was
like an expose about Freeman.
Yeah. And it was on record that Howard was one of his youngest patients and that he was still alive.
I think he was sort of like famous because he was one of the youngest at 14, and he was also the first one to have photographs taken of a transorbital lobotomy happening.
Yeah, so he was like in medical journals and like people knew who he was. After NPR got in touch with him, they began a collaborative effort which led to his memoir and radio piece called My Lobotomy, which is it's incredible. Like, definitely listen to the NPR audio piece, and if you do books, get his book. It's a great way to support him and just learn his story. It's truly remarkable. And yeah, the team at NPR helped write it, helped put this all together so that he could tell his story from his actual perspective. And like, I mean, I hate to praise it for being such a gift, but like, when you think about it, it is, because so many victims of this procedure either didn't make it at all or did make it, but without the capacity to tell their story, like, honestly, you know, like, tell their story at all.
I mean, we talked about like what the frontal
What happened
lobe,
to Rosie?
What the frontal lobe does, it's communication, it's personality, it's language, it's emotion, it's everything that's involved in making you a human. So if any of that is damaged, you know, it's shocking that he was able to bounce back, for lack of a better phrase, but you know, let alone write a fucking book about it.
It's wild. He also said that connecting with NPR helped him finally face his past. In researching his story, he visited Freeman's son to look like face to face with somebody who his son obviously didn't do this to him, but like
maybe
his father did.
For it a little bit.
He also met with relatives of patients who underwent the procedure, because many of the patients were either dead, or even if he had met with some of the patients, they could barely communicate. The archive where Freeman's papers are stored, he went there and like looked through a bunch of his medical records leading up to the procedure. And he finally sat down with his father, Roger, who he had never spoken to about the lobotomy.
Oh my God.
And finally asked him about it for the first time ever. And I think that's how like the NPR audio piece kind of wraps up. It's extremely moving, powerful, fucking brave. I mean, it's an incredible piece of journalism, and I highly recommend checking it out. So Dully appears to have completely recovered from his procedure. He doesn't display slowness of speech, the common squinting of the eyes, or lack of social inhibition. He considers himself unaffected. Well, nearly, he says, quote, "I don't feel physically different from anyone else. I get eye infections because I think they destroyed my tear ducts." He says, I know, poor guy. He said, "If you saw me, you'd never know I'd had a lobotomy. The only thing you'd notice is that I'm very tall and weigh about 350 pounds. But I've always felt different. I've always wondered if something's missing from my soul. I have no memory of the operation and never had the courage to ask my family about it. So 2 years ago, I set out on a journey to learn everything I could about my lobotomy. I asked my dad about it, and I don't think he meant any harm. He said he got manipulated by Lou. She threatened him with divorce if he didn't go ahead with it.
And Dr. Freeman, I'm sure.
Well, he said, my dad said he only met Dr. Freeman once. It was like Lou communicates with Dr. Freeman. Lou takes care of this. I want to note that they wound up getting divorced eventually anyway, before she finally died. So like, bye, bitch. But,
oh God.
Quote, "Although he refuses to take any responsibility, just sitting here with my dad and getting to ask him about my lobotomy is the happiest moment of my life," Howard Dully says. I know. It makes me want to burst into tears. It's like, you deserve so much fucking more than that. You deserve so much fucking more. But it's like, he spent his whole life not essentially being shown that not communicating about traumatic things that's the status quo. And so of course he's not going to ask. His dad didn't fucking tell him when his mom died. Like, that's how he was raised. That's what he learned. And
at such an early age, that's how you learn. That's how you operate.
Yeah.
It would take so much effort to change how you think about that at a later age if you're exposed to that and you're taught that that's normal at that early of an age.
So, like, I understand and frankly share some of that joy with Howard when he says it was the happiest moment of his life, because imagine like cycle of trauma and abuse he had to break and the bravery he had to have to even look his father in the eye and ask him a question like that. I mean, he didn't get the response that he wanted, but he realized how much he had overcome to be able to even ask. Like, it gives me fucking chills. This whole case just made me like so emotional to read about. It's a lot, but it's just like, a lot. I feel I have so much empathy and like love for this person who was just told his whole life, like, you don't get to have autonomy over the things that you experience, you know, like you don't get to know, you don't get to ask questions,
emotions, everything.
You don't get to express yourself. You don't get to make mistakes. You don't get to act out. You don't get to like grieve. And he made it this far and then finally felt strong enough to even ask his dad that question. Like, that's fucking amazing. I don't disagree with Howard Dully on much of anything, but I can't lie. I do disagree with him on this quote.
Oh, no.
He says, quote, "I don't think Freeman was evil. I think he was misguided. He tried to do what he thought was right. Then he just couldn't give it up. That was the problem." I don't know. I mean, I think to an extent, Dr. Freeman started with a curious mind and maybe thought that this could really be a big advancement for modern psychiatric medicine. And like, you know, the road to hell is paved with fucking good intentions.
Yeah.
But he, for 25, 30 years, over and over and over again, did this to people and saw the results and was satisfied with them.
There was probably a good amount of hubris in there, which I think...
So much.
And I mean, we've talked about like psychopathy before. A lot of surgeons are literal psychopaths. So
yeah,
maybe he was just completely setting aside the human toll of what he was doing. He was compartmentalizing to a bad degree.
And I think he was being bolstered by the medical community in some ways. You know, like there's narcissism at play, there's psychopathy at play, there's hubris at play, there's just like fucking your old general run-of-the-mill like white male supremacy at play.
Bullshit.
I mean, yeah, it's just it just fucking makes me feel sick to my stomach. So we're gonna let the incredible Howard Dully wrap this up for us with his reflection after meeting with another lobotomy survivor. He said, quote, "I'll never know what I lost in those 10 minutes with Dr. Freeman and his ice pick. By some miracle, it didn't turn me into a zombie, crush my spirit, or kill me, but it did affect me deeply. Walter Freeman's operation was supposed to relieve suffering, but in my case, it did just the opposite. Ever since my lobotomy, I felt like a freak, ashamed, but sitting in this room with survivor, the daughter of a survivor, Rebecca Welsh, and her mom. So Rebecca was who he spoke with, and her mom was a survivor of lobotomy. I know that my suffering is over. I know my lobotomy didn't touch my soul. For the first time, I feel no shame, and I am at last at peace."
Oh.
And now I'm crying again.
Oh.
This case just really fucking got me, man. It really got me.
I'll lend you my copy of the book because
I really do want to read it.
I forgot. I mean, I read it like fucking 15 years ago. So
yeah, I really want to read it. The NPR piece is incredible. I'm pretty sure I have it linked. I'll make sure I have it linked so that it's on our website. But holy shit, what a fucking story.
Yeah,
of survival.
I mean, and we don't often like think about like medical procedures and like things that are that clinical as crossing over with like a piece of your soul and like spirituality. But when you're talking about your fucking brain, your personality, your identity, that's all that it is.
Yep.
So this is a really big topic to tackle. And the implications are so fucking far and wide reaching that it's impossible to sum this up in one discussion of any length, let alone a fucking podcast episode. So,
but we did our best.
We did our best.
2 hours.
Yeah. Well, this might have been one of the less funny episodes, but it's
really fascinating. I haven't like gotten that emotional
in a really long time
on air like this in a while. Like that. I'm so glad we covered it. But yeah, that hit me hard. And I have read over these notes a bunch of times before recording them. I think there's something about just like saying it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then
anyway,
he was 14 when this happened.
I think it was 12.
Oh, 12.
12. Fuck. Yeah.
It's either way, a child.
A little baby boy. I mean, I think of how much of a piece of shit I was when I was 12. I'm kind of shocked my family didn't
we all would have
me.
been lobotomized. All
Hands
of us.
down. Thank God we were born in 87 and not like 27 or 37.
And not in France.
And not in fucking France. There's a lot of reasons I'm thanking God I wasn't born in France. Let me fucking tell you. Just kidding, but I'm not kidding. Anyway, that's my case.
Thank you to us for this fucking topic. And
yeah, this is your fault. You made me cry.
Well,
she
at
giggles.
the risk.
No,
at the risk
don't do
it. Low class.
Okay.
It's intense. It's very intense.
Oh my God. I hate it. It gives me the absolute ick. It makes me cringe.
Yeah, I know.
I fucking hate it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. These are going to go back into my oddities cabinet. And thanks for
Never
listening.
come out again.
Till you come visit next week.
No!
We'll see you next week. We love you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Wine and Crime. Our cover art is by Danielle Sylvan. Music by Phil Young and Corey Wendell. Editing by Jonathan Camp. Our production manager is Andrea Gardner. For photos and sources, check out our blog at wineandcrimepodcast.com. You can follow us on all the socials at Wine and Crime Pod. If you have questions, answers, or recommendations to share, email us at wineandcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It is the best way to spread the word. If you'd like to show your support and get access to all sorts of wine-fueled bonus content, visit our Patreon page. Cheers!